Dear beloved family, hello everyone. Today, by receiving the grace of heaven and the virtue of the Master, the immense grace of the wondrous Supreme Emperor, the compassion of the senior Tao elders and senior Tao leaders, the compassion of the senior predecessors and predecessors, the compassion of the leaders and deputy leaders, and the compassion of all the teachers, I have been given this opportunity to read together with all of our dear family the sacred teachings compassionately given to us by the ancient Buddha, Bodhisattva. Avalokitesvara. No matter how we look at it, after saying all this, I truly feel that we are very blessed people. In what way are we blessed? Think about it. In this human world, besides our own families of origin, we also have fellow practitioners in the Tao community, as well as our elders, senior predecessors, and senior guides, all of whom care for us, love us, and look after us so much. Not only that, the heavenly immortals and Buddhas also care deeply for us. The immortals and Buddhas not only protect us and help us behind the scenes, but also help us turn danger into safety and misfortune into blessing. At very important moments, or when there are class sessions at the Tao Hall, they may descend by borrowing a vessel and come to the Buddha Hall to give teachings and guidance in person. And what they teach is always exactly what we need. Sometimes, what they point out is not only useful at that very moment, but also continues to be useful in the days and years ahead. That is how wondrous and special it is. So, after all is said and done, I truly believe we are very blessed people, receiving so much love and care. Since we are blessed people, we should hold hearts full of gratitude and joy, and with wholehearted attention, focus, and reverence, read together the sacred teachings given to us by the ancient Buddha, Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. We begin with the descending altar verse. Divine things leave no trace, heaven's craftsmanship is wondrous. Cloud screens bloom in radiant splendor and delicate beauty. With an open heart, one can roll and unfold, moving freely with the winds of time. Within mountains are hidden treasures, within the seas are abundant jewels. At the edge of the heavens, green hues gently descend. Mist and wind urge people toward aging. Clear spirit penetrates all and contemplates all existence. Constantly nurturing and transforming in accordance with the Tao. The ancient Buddha's compassionate first line is, divine things leave no trace, heaven's craftsmanship is wondrous. Divine things here refers to something sacred. What is it? It is the great Tao. The Tao leaves no trace, meaning its movement is extremely subtle and wondrous, without visible marks. Heaven's craftsmanship is wondrous means that the way heaven and earth create and nourish all things is completely natural and ingenious, without revealing any artificial carving or human intervention. That is why it is called heaven's wondrous craftsmanship. For example, take the three sovereigns, or Emperor Shun among Yao, Shun, and Yu, and also Lord Guanyin. They transformed people through virtue. In fact, not only Emperor Shun, but Yao, Shun, and Yu all governed by virtue. Then what happened? The people naturally came to follow them. There were no forced commands imposed on the people, yet the world was still well governed, and the world enjoyed peace. This is exactly what the ancient Buddha is describing with the words divine things leave no trace, heaven's craftsmanship is wondrous. Next, cloud screens bloom in radiant splendor and delicate beauty. Let us picture this scene, a sea of clouds at sunrise, with clouds layered one upon another. If we take a plane, we can feel this even more clearly, or if we climb a high mountain, we can also deeply sense the layered scenery of the cloud sea. The clouds on the horizon overlap like a huge screen standing between heaven and earth. This screen-like cloud layer is very brilliant. After being touched by sunlight, it shows vivid, rich, and gentle colors, taking on many different forms. It is truly beautiful. Even though it is the same cloud layer, sometimes it receives a little sunlight, sometimes a bit more, sometimes less or more again. The cloud's form and color all change a little, sometimes dazzling, sometimes dimmer. This means that external beauty also changes, and sometimes the change can be quite large. Sometimes it is beautiful, but with a change, that beauty disappears. In this way, it is also telling us that worldly glory and wealth are like clouds, dazzling and beautiful, yes, but sometimes beauty cannot last. So the ancient Buddha uses the word delicate to remind us that worldly prosperity is like those brilliant clouds, soft, charming, and moving, but temporary and ever-changing. Clouds can disperse at any time, and worldly wealth and status are the same, they cannot last forever. Next, with an open heart, one can roll and unfold, moving freely with the winds of time. Within mountains are hidden treasures, within the seas are abundant jewels. Open heart means expanding our heart, making it broad, and having no restraints. Roll and unfold means being able to contract and expand, to yield and to stretch. Winds of time means following the trend of the times, flowing naturally like the wind. Free and unrestrained means being relaxed, graceful, and able to respond naturally and freely. As the times change, one's heart can remain broad, just like the story of Fan Li and the King of Yu. After Guanyin endured humiliation for 3 years and returned to Yu, he resolved to seek revenge. Guanyin accepted the advice of Fan Li and Wenzhong and implemented the national policy of 10 years of building up the people, 10 years of educating and training them. As a result, he defeated King Fuchai of Wu and restored the strength of Yu. When Fan Li had achieved success and fame, he decisively left Yu. He took Shishir and sailed across the 5 lakes, changed his name to Tao Zhugong, and did business in the state of Qi and in Tao. Fan Li did not cling to power. He withdrew according to the situation because he understood that Guanyin was someone who could share hardship but not wealth and honor, and he anticipated that meritorious ministers would eventually become objects of suspicion. So Fan Li withdrew at the right time and went to another place to do business. He became extremely successful, becoming wealthy 3 times and giving away his wealth 3 times, while still maintaining very sound financial standing. He became the richest man in the world at that time. Fan Li's ability to become wealthy 3 times is already remarkable, but even more admirable is that he could help others and share his wealth with everyone. That is why he eventually became the Tao Zhugong revered by merchants. This is a true reflection of, with an open heart, one can roll and unfold, moving freely with the winds of time. Within mountains are hidden treasures, within the seas are abundant jewels. If we look at our present time, think about the workplace. Everyone knows that today, in traditional industries, being able to stay afloat is not simple at all. Some people are especially blessed, some still have fairly good blessings and are doing quite well. For example, Mr. Huang Yongzheng, who helps operate the camera at Chongqing Buddha Hall, is also in a traditional business, and their business is still fairly good. That shows they have quite good blessings. But many businesses today are in a very difficult situation. Often, they are already barely holding on. Sometimes 2 companies need to merge, otherwise, they have to think about how to transform. Once a company successfully integrates, when you, I, and he all integrate together, what used to be competitors may have reached the point where there is simply no path left. So what can be done? Integration may at least offer a chance of survival. Or one must think about transformation. But to truly transform, one needs not only wisdom, but also courage and boldness. Only then can another path appear, another way out. If someone gets stuck in pride, cannot let go, refuses to transform or change, and keeps struggling in confusion, then if they survive, that is fortunate, but if they do not, they may even burn through all their original capital. So sometimes, if we can let go of attachment, shift our mindset, and follow the flow, opening our heart like the ancient Buddha compassionately teaches, with an open heart, one can roll and unfold, moving freely with the winds of time. Then we may also have the chance to reach the next line. Within mountains are hidden treasures, within the seas are abundant jewels. Treasures are hidden deep within mountains, and precious jewels are also contained in the depths of the sea. Everyone probably likes pearls, right? Pearls have both beauty and value. This is just like human beings, who also have endless treasures within. What are they? They are virtue and wisdom. From birth, we already possess innate wisdom, and if we are willing to receive the nurturing of the compassionate words of the immortals and Buddhas, then we can bring forth an even more continuous and abundant wisdom. So, from the very beginning, human beings are born with both virtue and wisdom. No matter whether a person's fate in this life is considered good or bad, it is often difficult to define what good fate or bad fate really means. Sometimes we look at others and think they are very fortunate, but perhaps they are not happy, because what they have may not be what they want, or perhaps they already have too much, and what they desire does not turn out the way they wish. In that case, being unhappy is actually normal. We cannot really say whether that person is right or wrong. There are also people who may seem, to outsiders, to have such a miserable fate and such a hard life, but perhaps this person has an open heart. Their mind is at peace, their humble little home feels secure, and they are simply living their life that way. This person's mood is stable, and although others think they are suffering, in fact, they do not feel suffering at all. So good fate is actually very hard to define, and bad fate is also very hard to define. So since we are able to become human beings, and since we already have a basic nature of virtue and wisdom within us, just as the immortals and Buddhas compassionately teach us, treasures hidden in mountains and seas. It is like Zhuge Liang back then, when he lived in seclusion deep in the mountains and had not yet come out of his thatched cottage. He did not really want to come out, and in the end it was Liu Bei's 3 visits to the thatched cottage that moved him, and he stepped out of his little hut. In fact, when he was living in seclusion, he did not reveal his mountains or show his waters, rather, he truly held within his heart the great trends of the whole world. His heart was very broad. Zhuge Liang did not display his talent or his sharpness outwardly, but inside he possessed extremely high insight, broad vision, and strategy, and he could see the affairs of the world and future developments with great clarity and depth. Some people are low-key masters. What does a low-key master mean? It is like now, when AI has become very advanced, causing people at times to have no choice but to keep improving. Sometimes a company, when being chased by new technology, or when chasing after new technology, cannot help but keep running with it. If it does not run ahead of technology, it cannot survive. So what should it do? It definitely needs to transform a little. If some senior staff are not very willing to change or learn, but some employees who usually do not seem especially outstanding are willing to accept change and study seriously, then what will they become? They will become the kind of employee whom the supervisor or the boss originally did not notice much, but who actually has very strong ability and ends up surprising everyone. So in this process of chasing after technology, many companies, many places, and many environments will encounter this kind of situation and meet this kind of quiet talent. This is what treasures hidden in mountains and seas means. Next, the ancient Buddha compassionately says, at the edge of the heavens, green hues gently descend. This means that at the boundary of the sky, green plants and trees hang down softly. Now let us imagine that scene. At the edge of the sky, there are grasses and trees, lush and green, gently drooping. Strong branches remain upright, while softer branches, like willow branches, are more flexible and hang downward. The thick branches and the soft branches cooperate naturally, drooping gently together, matching the scenery at the horizon. Let us imagine this kind of landscape, this kind of beauty. Return of the end means that all things ultimately return to nature and return to their source. It is like the cycle of the 4 seasons, spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Although some places may have summer almost all year round, with only occasional light rain, and some places may have a longer winter with cold seasons lasting much more often, in the end, every place still has its own cycle. And of course, in places where the seasons are more distinct, there is spring growth, summer flourishing, autumn harvest, and winter storage, and finally everything returns to the earth. It is the same cycle. Human beings are the same. When we are young, we are always busy running around. In fact, for most of our lives, we may be running around. Then when we reach a certain age, for example after retirement age, we begin to want a quieter life, or even to retreat from the world. When we are young and struggling, because of financial considerations and time constraints, we may not be able to go where we want or see what we want as freely as we like. So perhaps when we reach retirement or old age, we choose to live a more comfortable life, a life more in line with our own wishes. Now more and more people are choosing this kind of comfortable lifestyle. If such a lifestyle does not cost much, that is fine. But if it is expensive, then we also need to assess our own situation. Some people already have plenty of resources, and that is fine. But if we do not, then we must think carefully, because every country has examples like this. When people first retire, it feels wonderful, so they want to enjoy the kind of life they could not pursue in the past. If one lives a moderately comfortable life, that is fine. But if at the very beginning one takes too big a step, there are also people who later regret it, because as one grows older, there may be unknown physical conditions. If the body condition is not as good as before, then what is needed first? Of course, maybe money, right? So when we want to choose a comfortable life, our financial situation must also be considered. We need to include finances in our thinking. So that is the explanation of "At the edge of the heavens, green hues gently descend." Next, the ancient Buddha compassionately says, "Mist and wind urge people toward aging." This means, wind comes without a trace and leaves without a shadow, smoke, once blown, disperses instantly and becomes empty in a moment. It urges people to grow old quickly. The affairs of this world are like wind and like smoke. One puff and they disappear, so time is urging us forward. Time has no mercy. We truly grow old, and time does not stop for anyone, not even for a single second. Although now, through skincare products, aesthetic medicine, nutrition science, and all kinds of methods, people can appear younger or maintain their appearance more easily, both on the outside and inside, we can rely on maintenance to catch the tail of youth. So compared with people in earlier times, people of the same age today may look younger. Of course, beauty can be maintained for longer, and some people, because aesthetic medicine is so advanced, may even become more beautiful than they were when they were younger. Not only is aesthetic medicine powerful, even cosmetic surgery is powerful too. Besides making oneself look better than when younger, one can even become much more beautiful than others. It is true that many people can make their appearance more beautiful, but this only changes the outside. The outside may seem to preserve youthful beauty, and the body's interior may also look younger through good care, but in reality we are still racing against time. This is a fact, an unchangeable fact. So we should look at this in a very rational way. Although our outer appearance may seem to be quite well preserved, in reality, whether it is our body, our strength, our memory, or our flexibility in many aspects, is there a difference? Yes, there is. In fact, we are still moving toward aging with time. Some people pay great attention to wellness in every aspect, so perhaps they are in a slightly better condition. But in general, most people are still different from before. Just in movement alone, not even speaking of large movements, small movements are enough. Look at the classes in the Buddha Hall. In a class, if we look around, the people sitting in the front are not necessarily very young, let us just say they are relatively younger. And the people sitting in the back are not necessarily old. Let us put it more politely and say they are more senior predecessors. During the class, when everyone does group activities, the time it takes to finish and the results achieved will show the truth. Why is it like this? Because the younger fellow practitioners in the front are a bit more agile than the older ones. Their movements are more flexible, so the younger groups finish faster and get better results. The more senior fellow practitioners in the back are more steady. To put it nicely, we say they are more steady, but in truth, they are less agile. Isn't that right? We can feel it ourselves too, right? Saying it nicely is steady, saying it plainly is not agile. Can we deny that? If we deny it, then it means we do not truly understand ourselves. So we must admit it. This is exactly what the ancient Buddha compassionately means in the line, mist and wind urge people toward aging. Time is urging people to grow old. This is called impermanence. Time passes very quickly, just like Qin Shi Huang seeking immortality. With all the power Qin Shi Huang had at that time, was it easy for him to obtain health-preserving tonics or longevity medicine? It was easy, right? Qin Shi Huang even sent Su Fu out with 500 boys and 500 girls to the sea to seek the elixir of immortality. But did he get it? No. So those people never came back, because once there was no way to return, there was only one road. What road? A dead end. So although Qin Shi Huang wanted immortality, in the end he still could not avoid aging. There was nothing he could do. One day, he too had to say goodbye to everything in this human world. That day is certain to come. The so-called wind and smoke urging people to grow old means that time rushes by like smoke and signal fire, and before we know it, it has already driven people into old age. It makes us sigh at the ruthlessness of time and the brevity of life. But as long as we keep a clear and lucid mind, we can thoroughly see through and understand everything in this world. With a mind that is bright, clear, and wise, our spirit can penetrate and understand all things. The clearer our spirit becomes, the more we can see through the matters and objects of the human world, and the more clearly we can understand them. Therefore, by relying on this penetrating spirit, we can become more awakened, and after becoming more awakened, we can produce wondrous wisdom, and after producing wisdom, we can become even more penetrating. This forms a good cycle. It is just like Confucius. At 50, he knew the decree of heaven. Confucius said, "At 15, I devoted myself to learning. At 30, I was established. At 40, I had no more doubts. At 50, I knew the decree of heaven." Because of the decree of heaven, he could clearly see all the laws of life and the human world. It is like the decision-makers in today's enterprises. They do not look only at the surface. If they are able to succeed, it is not because they only look at appearances, but because they can see more clearly and more thoroughly than others, and they can understand the trend more deeply. So some people work hard, but very quietly and very lonely. In a certain area, they focus alone and quietly, putting in effort for a very long time. You could say they squat low for 10 years or 20 years, they have to be able to stay in that position. But when the timing is right, their chance arrives. For example, we are now in the AI era, and even AI needs these kinds of business leaders. Why? Because AI also needs inspection. At that time, who is going to do the inspection? It needs these business leaders to inspect whether there are any loopholes in practical use. It also needs these business leaders to promote its application. Before this opportunity arrives, these business leaders must be able to endure. They cannot look only at the surface. Before the timing is right, before the environment matches, they must be very patient and able to hold steady. They may even need to squat deeply. Only by deep squatting can one truly achieve success. So it is not enough to look only at the surface, one must thoroughly understand the real trend. Then, the final line says, constantly nurturing and transforming the Tao. This means the great Tao operates eternally, continuously giving birth to, transforming, and nourishing all things in heaven and earth. The Tao is continuous and uninterrupted in its operation, and it moves according to order and rhythm. Although human life is short and impermanent, the great Tao behind it is eternal. Like a mother, it constantly nourishes and transforms everything. It goes on endlessly and never stops. Just like when human beings do good deeds can also follow the same principle as the Tao, generating an endless flow of positive energy and goodwill. The more often we do good, the more continuously the benefits can expand. This is true for family values, and it is also true for social atmosphere. Doing good frequently is beneficial. It is like the double parent banquet at Chongqing Tao Hall. During that celebration, there was a program in which families were interviewed. The host interviewed teacher Wang Weizhen, who is a psychological counselor. She said that the elders and parents in the Tao Hall all share one common hope. They hope that their children and descendants can continue walking the path of spiritual cultivation. No matter whether they are in the fields of government, agriculture, industry, or commerce, they should persist in walking this correct path of cultivation. Teacher Wang said that because she has followed the cultivation path of her ancestors and her parents, and because of her own cultivation journey all along the way, she clearly understands that if children persist in cultivating the Tao, then aside from being good for their mental and spiritual growth, it is also good for their future life and conduct. Among all things, the only thing ancestors and parents can truly ensure is this path of cultivation. As for everything else in this human world, people, events, and things are not something ancestors or parents can guarantee. They do not know which field of study the child will choose, or which path the child will take in the future. How could they guarantee that? What can they use to guarantee it? But ancestors and parents at least know that if one cultivates well, then that is truly a guarantee. Because the elders and parents themselves are already cultivating the Tao, they know that if their children can also choose this path of cultivation, just like them, then it truly has assurance. Everything in their future will be good, and will become better and better. So the ancient Buddha's compassionate phrase, penetrating spirit that understands all things, constantly nurturing and transforming the Tao, is describing exactly this kind of situation. Dear family, today we will first read up to here in the sacred teaching of our ancient Buddha, Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. We will continue next time. Thank you, everyone.